Hello, and my name's Andrew Brooks. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So this video, we're going to be looking at an album that collectors have known about since its release, and it's got one special thing that's attached to it, but you younger fans might not even be aware of its existence. So we're going to be looking at that. And before we do that, let's look into a little bit of history. We've just celebrated the 40th anniversary of Live Aid, and of course, Paul McCartney performed at the end. He was the finale. He did Let It Be. He had a few technical issues, the microphone not working, etc. But yeah, it was good to see him back on stage because he had not performed live on stage since Wings, like their last tour, '79. Obviously, there was meant to be the Japanese tour in '80, which never happened. You can see a link to the video that I made about that here. Click on that and you can check that one out. But so since '79, he'd never performed live. '85, he then performs Let It Be at Wembley for Live Aid. And you've got to help think, well, is this the start of him thinking maybe I need to get back on tour? But there was no indication of that after Live Aid. Almost a year after Live Aid, we then get another live performance by Paul McCartney. And he was invited along to Wembley by a chap goes by the name of Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul, he worked for a charity that was called the Prince's Trust, and it's now been rebranded, obviously, because it's the King's Trust, and it was Prince Charles or King Charles's charity back in the day, and it's still going now, where he was trying to help young people if they needed some money to set up a business, or there's even stories of him paying money so bands can go and rehearse and things like that. But if a young person needed money, they could approach the Prince's Trust, and if they were deemed worthy enough, then they were given some money. So in June of 1986, the 20th of June, 1986 to be precise, Paul appeared live on stage, and here's the club sandwich that reported on it. So yeah, Paul appeared on stage at Wembley for the 1986 Prince's Trust concert, and it was the 10th anniversary of the trust being set up. So they wanted a star-studded lineup, and that they got people such as Rod Stewart, George Michael, Tina Turner, Elton John, Mick Jagger, David Bowie, and of course Paul. Status Quo were there, Rod Stewart. Anyway, it was like a who's who of music of that time. Dire Straits were there. Certainly Mark Knopfler was, and it was a charity concert held at Wembley in support of the Prince's Trust 10th anniversary. Paul was only scheduled to actually do a couple of songs. They wanted him to do I Saw Her Standing There and Long Tall Sally, and he was going to perform them with the two guys from Status Quo, Francis Rossi and Rick Parfitt. So yeah, it was those were the two songs that Paul had sort of agreed to do. While in the dressing room, he was then approached by David Bowie and Mick Jagger, and they asked him, would you please perform guitar for our Dancing in the Street, which was obviously their charity single for Live Aid, which had been a year earlier, and it topped the charts and all that. And Bowie and Jagger were at this concert, so they were also going to perform Dancing in the Street, backed by Paul McCartney. Then, after Bowie and Mick Jagger had left the dressing room, he was then approached by Tina Turner and Rod Stewart, and they sort of like asked him, could we do a version of Get Back, because both Rod and Tina had also covered the single. So Paul was now going to do Get Back. So that was now three songs that Paul was going to close the show with. And of course, such as everything was since the 80s, I guess, everything McCartney does has been filmed and recorded when he's on stage, and the Prince's Trust was no different to that, and it's now available on a DVD. Here's my copy of it. I don't know if you can see it now. Maybe the back's a bit better. There you go. So you can see the lineup there, and Eric Clapton, and you've got Ray Cooper, you've got Brian Adams. Yeah, so there's lots and lots of guests appearing on this DVD, and McCartney closes it. It was also released as a CD. There we are. And it was also released as an album. And this is where we get to the interesting bit. As I mentioned, Paul was meant to do 3 songs. And he did do the 3 songs that I aforementioned. I saw her standing there, Get Back and Long Tall Sally. On the DVD, you get Paul McCartney and Ensemble doing Long Tall Sally and Get Back. On the CD, you get Paul McCartney and Ensemble doing Get Back and Long Tall Sally. On the LP, you get Paul McCartney and Ensemble doing Get Back. Now, this is the interesting bit. The LP not only came with, obviously, the LP, but it came with a 7-inch single. And it is a Paul McCartney 7-inch single, and you also get Long Tall Sally. But at the time, this was the only place you could get I Saw Her Standing There. Now, obviously, it's been widely available on YouTube and whatever streaming service you get your music from. I'm pretty sure you can find all 3 songs. But back in the day, back in 1987, when this album came out, this special 7-inch single was the only place you could get I Saw Her Standing There, which incidentally had Elton John performing on it. And if you think back to 74, Elton also performed I Saw Her Standing There with John Lennon. So just on recap, even though it's not very expensive these days, you can still pick this album up on Discogs or eBay, and it's relatively cheap. The harder thing to find is the 7-inch single that comes with it. There is a hype sticker up here that says free 7-inch single, Paul McCartney 7-inch single. So to find that, it's a little something for you fans if you wasn't aware of this or you haven't got it. Might get the album, and if you can get the 7-inch single that accompanies it, then you've got all 3 tracks. As I say, all 3 tracks are readily available, for streaming. But for a collector of vinyl, such as myself, and I'm sure there's plenty of you guys out there from the day who bought it, but there's lots of new guys and girls who don't, who weren't even aware of this, this live performance. So look out for the album with a free 7-inch single. As I say, it was just a little thing that popped into my mind that, it's 40 years since Live Aid. Well, next year it's going to be 40 years since Prince's Trust. And I was fortunate enough to go to Live Aid and also the Prince's Trust and the concert for the Prince's Trust the next year. That's maybe another video though, because there were some more special guests on that one. I hope you've enjoyed this short video. As I said, it was really just to sort of put it out there that this album is there. Most places, if you try and get the CD or the DVD, don't include I Saw Her Standing There, but it's on the 7-inch single that comes with this album. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.